Welcome to Gorilla Sports Off Field. I'm Liv Moods and joined by Nate Jackson in just a moment. And this is presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Trusted American salary-based mortgage consultants want to help you get into a better interest rate and lower your monthly payments. So head to trustedamerican.com to see how they can help you save some money today.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. Woo-hoo!
Woo!
On time. Yoo-hoo! We're here again for another Off Field. I'm Liv Moods. That's Nate Jackson. And we are going to be talking about the Broncos a little bit. Aren't we? Aren't we? Because we love the Broncos. And
Yeah.
obviously we know there was the combine last week. We got to get some updates from the one and only Brandon Cristal as he was there, kind of giving us the lowdown.
Yeah.
And it is technically the off season, but that does not mean there is not tons of things to talk about when it pertains to this Broncos team, especially because the draft is kind of the next thing. And the
Draft. We got the
Broncos-
free agent market opening
Mhm.
next week. The legal tampering period begins next week, which is a
Ooh.
weird phrase.
Tampering does make it sound really like illegal.
Like tampering, and then it's legal. It's like
It
it's
does
like,
feel very.
yeah. It's like legal murder starts next week. Like what? Okay, but yeah, the legal tampering is like the week before free agency opens, and then free
Mhm.
agency opens, and then Broncos will be adding some new people to their team and letting some guys go that you might like, or not re-signing some guys who have
Javonte Williams,
you
per
know
se?
made some contributions to this team and it might be fan favorites. But as Sean Payton talked about, you don't just pick up where you left off.
Right.
He kind of likened it to like emptying out the board, and putting the board back and then starting with the pieces all over again.
Mhm.
About 30% of your team ends up being new every year, give or take. So the Broncos have a lot of decisions to make here.
They do.
And I think today we could focus on the offense
Mhm.
because the offense was the weak part of this team last year. As exciting as it was to
I
have
was going to say it
Bo
was so exciting because of Bo Nix being a rookie and kind
Yeah.
of interestingly, the Broncos, the bar was pretty low
incredibly low.
offensively. So
Yeah.
anything better than what we've seen for the last decade was an
Right.
upgrade,
Right.
but it doesn't mean that they're where they want to be.
Not at all.
So changes still need to be made for sure.
Changes need to be made. Sean Payton's kind of his reputation in New Orleans and his resume was one of like top 5 offenses every year.
Mhm.
Offensive points and yards, they were always in the top 5, sometimes 1 and 2. And so that's what Sean Payton wants to
He
get
wants
back
to get there. Yep.
He's not, I don't think he's quite as happy winning because of defense. I think he wants it to be the offense that really is the story. The
Mhm.
Broncos defense was the story last year. They were 3rd in the league in points and 7th in yards. So
Mhm.
top 10 in both of those very important metrics. And the Broncos offense was the weak point. And they got to pick up their side of the ball if the
Yeah.
Broncos want to make waves in the playoffs and not go and get schmacked in the first round like they did against Buffalo.
Yeah, that was definitely a tough one. And honestly, it felt like the X factor in that game against the Buffalo Bills was actually the run game. But I think we should start in the first quarter of the football game of the show with the wide receivers.
Yeah.
Okay. There's quite a few players on this team in this offense that I think got an opportunity this season to show what they were about. I think preseason, there were conversations about, are there any household names on this team? Does Bo have the proper weapons to
Yeah.
be successful?
Yeah.
And I think this is a really great learning lesson for people like myself who struggle with patience.
Yep.
I have none of it.
Is that right?
Yeah. I think Nate's learning that pretty quick as we co-host together for some time.
No,
I
you're-
have no patience, but I think a lot of people were worried about the lack of weapons that Bo Nix had available to him. But some of that was, these are young guys that Sean was investing in. So you don't really know what you've got until you get to see it. And I think there was a lot of upside in the receiver department of this Broncos offense, but still could use some improvement. I would say, do you agree that Cortland Sutton, the most reliable for Bo Nix this
definitely.
season? So we know he's safe, he's good, he got paid. We're excited to have him. He's finally on a winning team. I'm sure it feels great for
But
him.
he also, I think, wants to redo his contract as well.
Mm.
So is Cortland going to hold out? Would they make a big move like trading Cortland Sutton for some, DK Metcalf is out there. They're a very similar type of player. You wouldn't want them both on your team probably, but if they think DK is an upgrade and they could get him for whatever. Are these conversations happening? It's hard to tell.
I saw rumors about Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson, I think he would be a good addition to the team.
Would you have to give up Cortland Sutton for that?
I don't really know. I don't really,
right? I don't know. I don't know how they would handle that.
Yeah. I mean, Garrett Wilson's in the prime of his career. What he's like, year 4 or something like that. So he's young and healthy enough and starting to learn enough about defenses where he's going to be a very productive receiver in the right system. But when I look at this Broncos receiving core from last year, yes, Cortland Sutton was its leader. He had 81 catches, over 1,000 yards for the first time since 2019, and he had 8 touchdowns. But after that, man, it's like they really spread the ball around, and they really like their young guys.
The wealth. Yeah,
they really like their young guys. The second leading receiver on this team was Javonte Williams with 52 catches. So they also, and Jaleel McLaughlin had 24. So they do like to throw the ball to the running backs. And so when Coach Payton talks about the Joker, he often compares it. It's either a running back or a tight end because the mismatches they can create, but they have to have superior ball skills. And we're going to get into the running backs a little bit later. But I think they need a running back who, if they want to call him the Joker, is a little bit more dynamic catching the ball out of the backfield than Javonte was, with 52 catches. Even though he caught a ton of passes, you need a running back who can do more with those passes.
Yeah.
But the second leading wide receiver on this team was a rookie, and it was Devon Vele, who had 41 catches for 475 yards and 3 touchdowns. Marvin Mims had a very good year, but he had fewer catches than Devon. He had 39 for 503 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Yep.
And then you got LJ Humphrey, who a lot of folks, get frustrated with because he had a couple moments this season where a fumble, a drop, things like that. But I really think he's a valuable player on this team for a variety of reasons. He starts the game with Cortland, which means to me that they like him in the base package because of his physicality in the running game. I think there's a world in which you move LJ Humphrey to tight end, have him put on 10 or 15 pounds, and then you can add a wide receiver to the roster and not lose anybody from last year.
Yeah.
The thing is, what you were saying, adding some pieces. If you add some pieces, then some of these guys go away. And who's that going to be? Because Cortland, they like him, obviously.
Yeah,
Devon Vele, he's a diamond in the rough. You don't want to get rid of that guy. Marvin Mims coming into his own. You don't want to get rid of him. And then Troy Franklin, who they really like. And they want to see him develop his potential. He had 28 catches for 263 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. So I think they want to keep all those guys. LJ Humphrey might be the odd man out. And so the reason why I think that he would be good as a tight end is because you could keep him. He could still do all special team stuff. He could still do the kind of the packages that you sort of have him in there with Cortland, but he could also add some receiving talent to a tight end room that needs it.
Yeah.
And then that would clear some space for, they'll probably draft a receiver or two like they always do and have him compete, but adding a big time free agent wide receiver, the guy I think they should get is Cooper Kupp. And I'll tell you why. Cooper Kupp is
I like that.
A really, really hard worker.
Yep.
He came sort of, from not from nothing, but with sort of low expectations.
Yeah.
He's a former Triple Crown winner in the NFL, which, not many receivers can boast that. Led the league in catches, touchdowns, and yards in a single season. He's been incredibly productive. He's been a little injured, and he's getting a little older. But his work ethic is notorious. He eats right. He's in there like early, like breakfast club, he's doing all the extra stuff.
Yeah.
And Cortland has been the elder statesman in that room. It would be nice to have somebody else to take a little bit of the heat off of Cortland.
For sure.
Who could also be the example.
It would have to be a veteran.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's some other guys out there. Devontae Adams is out there. I think he would be a good addition as well. But DK Metcalf, I don't really see him fitting in with Cortland and the other guys.
I don't see him fitting in with Sean.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah.
I don't think Sean and DK Metcalf.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think DK's a little hot-headed, but that's just who he is, and that's also what makes him a great player. But I don't think Sean would entertain DK's personality.
Yeah.
And it would probably be a very quick kind of Russell Wilson-esque. We're just not going to work, so deal with it.
Yeah, for that reason, I don't think he'll make that move. And DK has sort of fallen off a little bit in the last couple of years compared to where, his most productive years in 20 and 2021. And so
Do you think that's an environment thing?
Probably a little bit, yeah.
Because I do think the Seahawks have obviously had their struggles. It seems
Yeah.
like there's a coaching changes, quarterback changes. I mean, they've had some inconsistencies on their end, and maybe it's trickling down into the
Certainly.
team.
The team.
Team.
But I also do
including
think
DK.
that DK is sort of I wouldn't call him a one-trick pony, but he's not a route runner. He doesn't he can't run every route in the route
He's
tree.
just strong.
He's so fast and strong, straight
Yeah.
line, and he can, run the comebacks and the in cuts and stuff like that. But really being able to run every route in the tree. That's why I think a guy like Cooper Kupp would be great, because there's nothing he
could see
can't
it.
do. And the Broncos don't have that guy.
Mhm.
They got Marvin Mims, who is sort of a gadget guy. He's going in the backfield. He's a returner. He's coming into his own, but he's not a route runner. He's not like a pure route runner. Garrett Wilson, you mentioned, he kind of is. But I think Cooper Kupp, the success he's had from where he's come from, learned under Sean McVay,
Mhm.
and played with some, with
Well
Matt Stafford,
coached.
and really well coached.
Yeah.
And so I think he would be a good addition to the team. Probably a long shot there, but at the same time, I think it would give Bo Nix another really reliable target. And I think he would be great for the room.
I actually agree. And do we have any update on Cooper Kupp? Is there any rumblings out there about
What I read is that the Rams, it's kind of implied that it's going to be really hard for them to keep him.
Okay.
Because of his contract or because of what they'd have to pay him and that kind of thing. They're kind of like subtly saying goodbye to Cooper Kupp.
Coop. We love you, Cooper.
But yeah, I think this receiving core, you mentioned it, was getting sort of disrespected at the beginning of the year. There's no playmakers in that group. Well, I think as the season went on, they sort of started to prove that narrative wrong, and I think that will only get better. I think Troy Franklin's going to get a lot better. He's going to finally start connecting with Bo on those deep balls, and he'll be a deep threat, someone that Broncos can really rely on. Sean Payton likes to go deep. Cortland Sutton, really productive year. I don't really have much critique for him. He just needs a compliment, I think. And, that could be Devon Bailey. If Devon Bailey continues to come into his own.
I really like Vele.
It seems like every time they threw him the ball, he caught it. And
that's what I was just
catches.
going to say. He's like all reliable. It just felt like whenever he was needed, he was there.
Yeah.
And I love that.
And they value that.
Yes.
A guy who was drafted late, came in here and worked his butt off, had a really great camp, and then kept proving it on the field on Sunday. It wasn't just like a camp darling who fizzled. Every time you gave him a chance, he performed.
He rose to the occasion.
Yeah.
You mentioned Cooper Kupp, and I want to just now branch it out a little bit past the Broncos before we go over into our next quarter here and talk about another position in the offense that needs to be addressed. But there is a chance the NFC West could look significantly different next season.
Yeah.
Losing Deebo.
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
DK Metcalf,
Wow.
Cooper Kupp,
Wow.
Brandon Ayuk has expressed interest in wanting to be traded, and there's rumblings there. That kind of poses now a bigger conversation, which we can dive into more in the off season as we continue to have shows. But there could be some big switcheroos in some of these.
switcheroos.
Listen, AFC West got some new coaching.
Yeah. Well, Pete Carroll goes from the NFC West to the AFC West.
I'm just saying the NFC West already was kind of up for grabs. It felt like this season. It was like at any given moment, it could have been anybody's to take, because it was kind of ebbs and flows all season long. So the NFC West just got very, very interesting. If you do see Cooper Kupp jump over to the AFC, even, it would be very interesting. Yeah, I would love it though. I like it when things get shook up.
Didn't Ayuk just sign this new deal and hold out all the camp? How's he trying to leave? That doesn't say a lot of good things about what's going on in San Francisco. I'll tell you that. It's not good for the culture there. When your guy just held out, you gave him a big deal, and now he wants out after he messed his knee up, and he's going through the rehab with your medical people, and he's like, so they're helping him every day. They're treating him every day, and he's like, I don't want to be here.
It was so hard for me all season long. And I know we're going to spend some time at halftime talking about Deebo's trade, because I have yet to talk about it on this show. It was so hard for me to not want to get on Twitter and just start defending, because Deebo is someone that I've worked with now and that I consider a friend, and I have nothing but respect for him. But it was so hard to watch him face all this scrutiny when I knew that it was much bigger than just a bad year. There was a lot of things going on, whether it be, and I'm not pointing blame at any particular person. I think it takes an entire team and an entire organization to create a culture that doesn't feel right anymore for these
Mhm.
players. Now, some of it, of course, you can chalk up to diva mentality and people just wanting to leave. And Brandon Ayuk got injured, and who knows what that rehabbing process has looked like. Who knows what the conversations with the 49ers have looked like since he's been injured. But
Or even before that, during the holdout, who knows how badly his ego was bruised during that. And like,
just
even though
it does make you wonder, though,
Yeah.
to go from being such a successful franchise, going to the Super Bowl, to then having such a fall off.
So what's the cause of it?
I think there's a whole lot of me, I,
Mm,
and not a whole lot of collaboration.
we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming one person or the other, and I'm not blaming Kyle, and I'm not blaming John. I'm not saying that it's any particular person's fault, but I do think there's a sense of entitlement there. Well,
Mm.
look at the star power in that locker room.
Yeah.
Everybody wants the ball. Everybody wants to be that guy.
Yeah.
You can't all be that guy at once. So I think there is maybe some egos involved, but I do think, yeah, you take a step back and look at the injuries that team has dealt with,
Yep.
the trades now that they're dealing with, and it does make you wonder, like, whew, do they
The
need a
disappointment.
cultural reset over there? They might.
Yeah. And then maybe that's what they're doing,
And they could be.
getting Deebo, giving Deebo what he wanted, and maybe going to give Brandon Ayuk what they want.
Yeah.
They're going to sign Brock Purdy to a long deal, a big deal. I think they should. Some people don't think he's the guy for the future, but the disappointment of losing all those big games too, of getting so close and then not getting there, and then getting back and then not getting there again, it's got to wear on you.
For sure.
Yeah.
And football is, this, just as mental as it is physical.
Oh yeah.
Once the mental piece is gone, it's really hard for the physical piece to still be there. So, shall we move into the second quarter?
Let's move on into the second quarter.
Yeah, second quarter. Woo! Let's talk about the never-ending conversation in Denver, which is, where are the tight ends at? What are they doing? What's their role?
Yeah.
What's their vibe? What's going on? Tight ends. Listen, it was very interesting because there was one game I went to, and I want to say it was maybe against the Panthers, where all three of our tight ends scored a touchdown, or two.
Yeah.
It wasn't Kroll because I bet on him, and he was the one that didn't. So I was pretty disappointed.
Troutman and Nate Atkins got in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we saw our tight ends being utilized here and there.
Yeah.
Definitely not on a very consistent basis, and they weren't what I would consider the most important piece in the offense. Whereas, you see other tight ends in the league that kind of have a much more important role, I would say. What needs to change with the tight ends? Do you have your eyes on any tight ends that you think the Broncos should draft? You just mentioned Lil Jordan Humphreys being that guy.
Well, I don't not necessarily think you could count on him being your joker or your guy, but I think he could be a good addition to the room because of his versatility.
Yeah.
And whenever you convert someone like that, like I converted from receiver to tight end, and it took me a couple of years to figure it out.
He's 20. Which one was your favorite?
I mean, I just love catching the football. And so like playing receiver,
feeling the leather in between your fingers,
just chasing a ball in flight and doing anything I can to catch that ball. God made me.
I wish I could do it.
God gave me some talents. The one talent he gave me, or God gave, I'm not going to say God's a he. I don't know. I'm not going to put genitals on God. I don't know the gender of God, but God gave me the ability.
Isn't it sad though that we're in an era, like, you guys, I'm just going to pause on the football talk for 5 seconds here. It is so sad how we have become like so paranoid to be perfectly correct about everything. Like,
I was kind of kidding,
I know you were, but it is funny because it's like you get worried about saying things that like you've
don't want
grown
to offend
up.
You guys.
Right. I mean, goodness sakes. Anyways, I thought that was funny. We don't know the gender. He's not gender placing.
No.
God.
No, I'm not assuming God's pronouns, okay? And I wouldn't do that.
Nobody would do that. No.
However God identifies, when God speaks to the people that God's close with, God gave me the ability to catch a football better than anything else in the world. And so when I in college, I caught a bunch of passes. I thought in the NFL, I'm going to just keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But you get there and you realize, wait a second, there's a bunch of other guys here who have that job and they get paid a lot, and they get paid a lot more than me. And so you kind of got to get in where you fit in.
Yeah.
And so I played receiver for a couple of years, and then one off season I was called by Mike Shanahan and asked if I would move to tight end. He said, we think it'll be a way for you to get on the field more, catch more passes, get more involved in the offense. And I'm like, of course.
To play the game I love more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I started gaining weight immediately. I gained like 25 pounds that off season.
Ooh, what was your diet?
McDonald's.
I love
No,
McDonald's.
just everything. I mean, my diet was everything.
I tried a McDonald's fish fillet for the first time the other night.
Wow.
I had never had one before.
And did you like it?
I did. I'm not a big tartar sauce girl.
You know who loves the fish fillet?
Your son?
No, President Trump. He's a Big Mac fish fillet guy. He gets like 2 Big Macs, 2 fish fillets.
Why
and just
doesn't
goes
that
to
surprise
town.
me at all?
He likes the tartar sauce in the corner of his mouth.
He leaves it there. No, it was actually very good. I had never had
No,
the
it's not
fish
bad.
fillet,
It's
and it
not
was
bad.
really not.
I mean, McDonald's is gonna like engineer everything to taste pretty yummy. Like those are, you know,
Don't say engineer about my food. That
it's
makes
made
me
in a lab.
sad.
It's made in a lab.
You know, because I know that, but I don't want to think about that as I'm
Yeah.
like eating it like it's gourmet fine dining. Because
Well-
I do love every once in a while it'll be like, well, because you know the Nuggets games go so stinking late
Yeah.
that there's times where I'm live at 11 p.m. and it's like I didn't eat before and I didn't eat during the game while watching it. So what do I eat at freaking midnight? Not proud of it, you guys, but
Girls got to eat.
well, DoorDash McDankstanks
Wait,
action.
don't DoorDash the McDonald's. How long is this? How long ago was it made? 45 minutes ago.
Probably.
Okay.
I love a
Hey,
DoorDash.
tell me here. I don't know
love
why.
it. I love a DoorDash. I really do. There's nothing better than being in my comfy clothes. All that to say, I wish that there was a job I could have where they like promoted me to eat McDonald's and gain a little weight.
Yeah. Yeah. It
I'd
was.
be really good at that.
Yeah. It was not horrible.
Of course not.
But some of it, like I would drink these Mileplex shakes right before bed, and I put ice cream in it and like eggs and chocolate sauce and drink it before bed.
Eggs, raw
yeah.
eggs.
Yeah, blended up. And I gained the weight, but it was hard to keep that weight on. I wasn't a natural tight end. And so I had to learn how to block dudes with a, you know, from a 3-point stance next to a tackle, blocking a guy who's 300 pounds and has been doing this his whole life.
And that's
That
hard to
was
do
a
when you're a
challenge.
skinny guy.
Exactly. So that part of it was really, really hard.
Yeah.
Very
I can only
humbling, but I
imagine.
learned so much about the sport
Mhm.
because tight ends know more than anyone else on the field offensively about what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish, because they got to know the passing game. They got to know the running game. They got to
Mhm.
know pass protection. They got to know all the line calls. They got to know the blitz, the fronts, the coverages, all that. And
Are
they
they
actually
the smartest guys out there?
they are.
There you go.
They
Tight
even-
ends are the smartest
They are.
guys on the field.
They are. Listen to Greg Olson, you know, talk about football. He's an announcer and he has so much experience and nuanced, practical understanding of it, more so than a quarterback who just has a conceptual understanding of it. Because he's never running through these zones and trying to accomplish the things that he's telling you to do.
Right.
He's saying you're supposed to be there, but how do I get there?
Right.
How do I read
Tell me the
that
how.
and end up in the right location?
Right.
Tight ends understand that, quarterbacks don't. So I would even say that tight ends are smarter than quarterbacks, but whatever, that's for another time. The Broncos tight ends
Yeah.
were not very productive last year.
Mm-mm.
Now, not all their fault. They weren't
I
used
was
very
gonna
much.
say, does that also fall a little bit on coaching?
Yeah.
And
Well, it also falls on kind of them not understanding who they had at the beginning of the year. Greg Dulcich was supposed to be the guy. They gave him
that
some
was the
chances.
biggest plot twist because
Yeah.
he had a really great camp.
Yeah. There's our new
And
Joker.
we were
He's
really
displaying
convinced
Joker
that was going
traits.
to be the guy, and
Yeah.
then he.
And then he just couldn't figure it out on game
Mm-hmm.
day. And that just goes to show you sometimes a guy will excel in practice. And when you give him all these chances and script practice plays in a way that he's going to get open and you feel good about it there, but then you get him on the field in the game and it just
Very
doesn't
different.
click.
Yeah.
So Greg Dulcich, who spent a couple of years injured, was given this opportunity and couldn't figure it out. And so they had to kind of adjust on the fly. Probably game 4 or 5, he started being inactive and Lucas Kroll went up. And Greg Dulcich is no longer a Bronco. He was traded in the middle of the season, right? So, but the productivity still wasn't there. Lucas Kroll had 19 catches for 152 yards, 0 touchdowns. Adam Troutman, only 13 catches. He's a starting tight end and 188 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. And Nate Atkins, who's kind of a jack of all trades guy, he can become a fullback. He's really good at special teams. He goes in motion. He blocks his ass off. 14 catches, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. And I think Nate Atkins kind of showed more than people thought he had in the receiving game, even though it was only 14 catches. He had 14 catches on 15 targets, which is incredibly consistent. So when you throw it to Nate, he catches it. And so
Reliable.
reliable.
So you think they'll keep him?
I do. And I think they might get rid of Michael Burton, the fullback.
Okay.
And maybe keep Nate Atkins in that role if you want to run 5 plays out of base during the game. You know, Michael Burton could be a roster spot that might get taken by someone else. But I don't know. Sean Payton does like Michael Burton. He had him in New Orleans.
Yeah.
He allows him to go in that base formation, a fullback, a running back, 2 receivers, and a tight end, which is kind of a traditional NFL offense that, Sean Payton still values quite a bit depending on the opponent. But they need a more dynamic pass catching tight end. And
sure.
Lucas Kroll had a pretty good mini camp too. And it was like, oh, could this be the guy? And maybe he still can. But I think that they're going to target a tight end or a running back in the first round. And maybe like 1-2 in the first or second round. They're looking for the Joker.
Yeah.
And this is because they had Jeremy Shockey, or Sean Payton had Jeremy Shockey. He had Jimmy Graham, who had 99 catches one season. He led tight ends in reception multiple years when he was there. That's what he's looking for, a guy like that. But Jimmy Grahams don't just grow on trees, Liv.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Just pluck one down.
And so who's that guy? And, whether it's Tyler Warren or the other guy, the tight end, it's a Joker is a guy who can create mismatches on defense, meaning he's a good route runner. He has a good feel for space, coverages, zones, and he has nice soft hands and can make plays after he catches the ball.
Moisturized.
Yes.
If you will.
Yes.
That's very important, by the way.
Yes. You're an Aquaphor girl, aren't you?
I love Aquaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in this dry climate.
I started using a new body lotion. It's the Neutrogena Hydro. It's like a jelly lotion. It is top tier.
Top tier.
I would recommend it to every person out there.
Oh, over the Aquaphor.
Aquaphor is a circumstantial lotion. It's like for your lips.
Circumstantial lotion.
Circumstantial lotion. Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, it's like for your lips or
you can't put it everywhere.
Under eye, so that my makeup doesn't crease.
Okay.
Like certain things I will use Aquaphor for, but
when
I'm out of the shower and trying to
you're not
get ready for
everywhere.
work. I'm not, because Aquaphor needs hours to sink into your skin. Otherwise, you're going to leave an imprint everywhere you go.
Okay.
So,
yeah, you don't want to do that.
the more you know. I am big on, you will never catch me get ready for the day, get out of the shower, all that, and not put lotion on my skin. In this
it's just dry climate. And then also it's cold, and so you're running the heater all night. It's just well,
I just don't get how people can put their clothes on without lotion on their skin. That feeling, that's a no for me.
That's a no. Okay.
That's all, guys. I'm just taking you into my get ready routine. So there you go. The more you know.
The more you know. So I think the Broncos are going to upgrade that tight end room, and I think that's really
that's pretty necessary. I think
because it's the middle of the field that they gotta exploit. They haven't been able to do that. Just running those seams. I tell this story a lot, but when I got cut by the Broncos, I spent the next couple months out of football, and I was training to get back in. And one of the last workouts I had was in New Orleans. It was right before the start of the 2009 season. They had an injury to their number 2 tight end, and they ran a lot of 2 tight end packages. So they needed a guy to come in and play right away. And so 4 of us guys who were veterans who were on the street came in for a workout. And I had some of those workouts before from other teams, and it was like a scout and just some backup quarterback or a random guy throwing us the ball, but the coach wasn't there. The starting quarterback wasn't there. But in New Orleans, Drew Brees was throwing us the balls in the workout, and Sean Payton was the one who was literally right here just telling us what route to run and how to run it. And a lot of what we did was work on the seam route. And we ran the seam in a bunch of different ways versus different coverages, and Drew would place it back shoulder and all these different places. And it was clear to me then that this seam route and exploiting the middle of the field is a huge part of the Sean Payton offense. And we have not seen that here. Nope. We saw it a little bit this year. Okay, a couple things, shots down the field. Marvin Mims had that great touchdown. There's been a couple down the middle of the field, but not as much as Sean Payton would like. And part of it is because he doesn't have that Joker at tight end to take advantage of it. So I do see the Broncos going after a pass-catching Joker type of tight end.
I agree. Yeah. I think it's mandatory. I knew what I wanted to say. I just couldn't get my lips to say it.
You said it.
Yeah, I said it. So I do think that's mandatory. Tight ends, wide receivers, we've discussed those. Let's move into halftime.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get
slice. Take a pee real quick.
Yeah. Deebo to Washington.
Yeah.
So exciting. Very excited for him. I knew this. I knew more than I was letting on for sure the other day. But
what did he tell you? He was like, yeah, it might be Washington, or was there another team in the mix, or what was his?
I think there were a few other teams in the mix. The only conversation that we had was him just saying, he shot me a text and said, I have some news for you. And I said, just give me a call whenever. I'm here watching the Nuggets game. And then he FaceTimed me and just said, this is, Commanders showed some interest. We're waiting to see if the 49ers accept or decline. And then he kind of made a joke You ready to fly to DC and keep podcasting? I'm like, yeah, it's a much longer flight than
Yeah.
California, but yes, I will absolutely do that. So yeah, I mean, I did know this for probably about a week
Okay.
before it was made
And you
public.
kept a secret.
I kept it very secret, very, very secret. But you know what? It's so funny because I had a couple people that were like, why didn't you tell me? And it's so interesting because in this space, I think there is such value in respecting that that's his
Oh, yeah.
information to share. And as much as it's like, yeah, it would be super cool for me to flex that I know this and ooh, you know, like tell everybody I know how exciting it is. But it was his story to tell, and I knew it was going to come out more than, you know, if it was meant to be, it was going to be public knowledge before I knew it. And also, I do think Deebo was being very careful about not wanting to jinx it. You know, you don't want to
Yeah.
get your hopes up. It's a business at the end of the day. So even if a team shows interest, if the 49ers don't agree, there's
Yeah.
no movement there. So I knew that the Commanders were very, very interested in him pretty early. Which of course I was like, how excited are you to play with Jaden Daniels? The guy is a freaking beast. And I think there's a lot of excitement there. I saw Jaden post and tag Deebo and say, let's get to work. So I think they've already, I'm sure, have some dialogue going. And I think he's pretty excited. I do think he'll probably struggle with the weather.
Mm.
He has told me that he is like the one thing that he's probably a little worried about is, you know, you're pretty blessed to play in San Francisco. I mean,
That weather, that where he lives, and it's not even San Francisco. It's like the Santa Clara.
It's pretty incredible. Every
Yeah.
time I visited there, I would come from Denver that's like 30 degrees and land there and it's like
Ideal.
65.
It's
and
ideal.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So I do think that's going to be a little bit of a shock to his system because playing football in cold weather is very different than playing football in not cold weather. So there's going to be some adjustments, of course, and I haven't touched base with him since. I just texted him the day it was made public and, you know, just told him I was super excited. But I do think we're going to try to do one last episode of our show where he can kind of talk about the process a little bit next week.
That's a good
So
idea.
hoping to have that.
Are you gonna fly out?
No, it'll be virtual because he's
Okay.
kind of all over the map right now.
Yeah.
Because it's his off season.
Is he gonna sell that house? It's in like Morgan Hill, right, where he lives?
I
or-
don't know, but yeah, I'm assuming he's selling the house. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure
Yeah.
the only reason he was there was because he was playing football. I think his family just was with him
Yeah.
because he was there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would assume he's probably already house hunting in
Yeah.
DC.
Exciting.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
And what a great, I mean,
How old
do
is
you
Deebo?
think 28, 29, 29?
Yeah.
I think he's 29.
Yeah,
I don't
when
know.
you get 30 in the NFL, it's like, man, you feel like an old man.
Let me actually, how old is Deebo? I think 29. Yep, 29.
Cool.
Yeah, so he's he's just under that 30 mark. 30 is
Yeah. And did he sign a new deal, or is it an existing deal that gets traded over? He might want to be looking for a new deal. you
maybe
know? Yeah. But he plays a very physical brand of football,
very.
and he is not afraid of contact. In fact, he leans into it. He wants to run through you, and the human body can only withstand so much of that. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see how they use him.
Did you see what he was saying on Twitter?
No.
He kind of clapped back a little bit at the haters out there that are like super obsessed and infatuated with his weight.
Oh.
Which, listen, okay, whatever. However you think he looked at one point and doesn't, to your point, he's getting older.
Mhm.
So he may not be able to eat and train the same that he could when he was 22 entering the league, right? Your body changes. But there was this tweet that said there was confirmation about Deebo Samuel being 20 pounds overweight last year.
20.
The person that said it said, I'm not going to say the number, but I asked what was Deebo's high point weight-wise last season, and it meshes with what you said a couple of weeks ago. It got really high, and there may have been reasons for that. Not able to work out because of pneumonia, which, by the way, you guys, that was really scary. Like, he told me many times how terrifying that was. Like, truly felt like he was going to die. The pneumonia was very, very bad. Not able to work out because of injuries, but that's a concern. I think the 49ers had that concern the minute he showed up in Santa Clara in 2019, and it never fully went away. He then quote tweeted that and said, 225 to be exact. Can't wait till this season start. Fresh start, new bow. So we might get a slim, thick version of Deebo, and he's just ready to light people up.
Well, you remember the criticism on Russell Wilson's weight.
Mm-hmm.
And then he lost some weight coming into that next season, and He played a little better that next season with Sean Payton than he did with Nathaniel Hackett, but people are very judgmental online,
Very.
and some people gain weight a little bit easier than others.
For sure.
Deebo is a thicker guy.
Right.
He's not a skinny
His
wide
legs,
receiver.
his arm,
He's a wide
right.
receiver, but he ain't like have a wide receiver body.
He doesn't have the typical receiver build
no.
at all.
And that's what allows him to beast people, to run over people, to break tackles. That's what makes him so good. But I'm sure there's a fine line there, and he's got to find that sweet spot. And every athlete every year is different. You're dealing with an injury, or you get sick, or think you can't do all the stuff you're eating and whatever. So, good job for Deebo landing in a good spot like that.
I know. I'm very excited.
It's not
for
a
him.
bad team.
Not at all.
It's not a horrible location. There's a lot going on there.
Do you think the Commanders got better when they got him?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm excited.
The Broncos would have gotten better if we got him. I mean, like the people who said that wouldn't work out because we got Marvin Mims. We also have Sean Payton, who knows how to use two guys who are really good at the same time, right? Like you can put those guys both in the backfield and imagine what you could do with them, right? So I think that it's a little bit naive to think that it wouldn't have worked here with Deebo.
Oh, I saw a tweet that pissed me off so bad.
What was it?
I'm not going to name drop, but it was a tweet.
Name it.
I don't even remember the name. It's someone local. It's a Denver reporter that I have seen on my Twitter a few too many times, but said something. Thankfully, all the Deebo to Denver conversations are over. It's like, thankfully.
Yeah.
This guy has a bad season, and you just think he's a freaking NARP. Do you know what that stands for?
No.
Non-athletic regular person.
Oh. Never heard of that.
NARP.
Yeah, a lot of NARPs on Twitter.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of NARPs talking crap about real athletes. Two real athletes.
To be honest, I think Deebo at 225 could still smoke just about any person that's trolling him on Twitter.
Of course.
Yeah.
Deebo at 275 could smoke anybody on Twitter who's trolling him.
Right.
There's a big separation there.
Yeah. It was just a weird way to word it, in my opinion. Like, thankfully, these conversations are done. Why wouldn't you want to upgrade the Broncos offense?
Yeah. I think maybe this is more of a reflection on how this person feels about Marvin Mims and wanting to clear the decks for Marvin to really thrive and flourish. But that's not how you necessarily win football games in the NFL. You win football games by creating dynamic plays from dynamic playmakers all across the board and finding a way to use all of them. And, injuries are pretty frequent in the NFL. Like Marvin Mims could get hurt, knock on wood. Like anybody can get hurt at any time. And the more playmakers you have, the better aligned you'll be to keep, scoring even when one of your playmakers goes down. So
I am so home for Deebo to just thrive.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like. And it may be different because it's on a completely different team, and he's become very used to how the 49ers run their offense. And he had told me many times how unique Kyle Shanahan is. But I do think he also spoke very
as a
highly,
guy or as a play caller.
He's like, learning a Kyle Shanahan offense is not for the weak.
Yeah.
It's really not. It's very tough. And so I think he feels like his time with the 49ers probably obviously made him a better football player, of course. And so I'm excited to see that translate somewhere else where it does feel like in so many ways the 49ers, in terms of how they run their offense compared to some other teams, are leaps and bounds ahead.
And I got to learn why that's true because, I sat down with Mike Shanahan last year and wrote a long piece about him, and he let me in on some of the stuff that they do in their meetings and stuff. And so typically like an offensive meeting situation is you break up and, you do watch film together, but it's offense, it's defense. And then you break up in even smaller groups and watch film with your position coach, and they talk just about your position. And all you learn is your stuff. Whereas Kyle Shanahan sits everybody in the room together, offense, defense, and coaches up everybody with so much detail and nuance that the other guy gets to hear it. The guy who's covering you gets to hear how you're coached, and vice versa. I get to listen to how a DB is coached to stop me doing the thing that I'm trying to beat him with. And so you get to learn things about the sport that you never, ever would have learned. So many coaches and teams are so like siloed when they coach up. Like the linebackers only know what the linebackers do.
Yeah.
But Kyle is so intelligent about everything happening on a football field.
That's what Deebo would say often.
That he can speak in layered detail about everyone's job, including the snapper, the punter, the right guard, the nose tackle, the receiver, the backup quarterback, everybody's job. He knows them better than anyone else does.
Mhm.
And so he's able to talk about it in ways that everyone could soak in a little bit of information. It's a lot on your
They're
mind.
all sponges on that
Yeah,
team.
but then you go out there and you start to see the big picture and understanding why I'm doing something over here. Because this doesn't make sense why I'm doing it like this. Well, but it does when you see that it's all connected, and you're doing this over here because this guy's going to get open because of it. And so
And do you think other team, like a team like the Commanders, who's kind of on the ups and is younger and they've got fresh coaching in there, do you think they know that about Deebo? Do you think that's something
absolutely.
that they also
Of course.
were really, really excited about? Is
Yes.
here's a guy that's not only great at what he does, but he's also coming from a very advanced offense.
Absolutely.
So even in Deebo's first season with the Commanders, I could see him being a leader in so many ways because one, he's a veteran, but two, he's been a part of one of the most advanced offenses in the NFL. And I think that probably appeals to the Commanders when looking for a guy to add to their roster.
And Cliff Kingsbury was the head coach in Arizona. They played the Niners twice a year. He knows all about Kyle Shanahan's offense and respects it immensely, I'm sure, because he had a huge challenge of trying to stop it. And so Terry McLaurin is the veteran in that room, and he's like also a guy who just like does it the right way, and he's like a leader. So I think those two guys are going to feed off of each other, similar to what I was talking about with, you know, what the addition of Cooper Kupp would do for Cortland Sutton, kind of take some pressure off, and they could be leaders together in that room. I think that'll do that for Terry McLaurin too, and Deebo can kind of join forces with him, and they can be a great example for the young players, and his intelligence, everything he learned in San Francisco will help him a lot there.
Yeah, I'm very excited for him.
Yeah.
He, again, is someone that I value as a friend and really, really have nothing but just the highest level of respect for. So I am super, super excited about his journey, his next chapter, and I'm hoping that not only he thrives, but the Commanders thrive with him
Did
there.
the Commanders play the Broncos this year?
You know what? I don't know.
They play the NFC East. Who did they play last year?
Broncos.
Because you always play one whole division.
Right. Has it been finalized?
I'm not sure.
2020. This would be the 2025 season, right?
Correct.
Let's see. It does appear that they have some finalization here.
Finalization acquired.
Finalization. They do. It's an away game. I will be there.
Awesome.
I will be there or be square. And I'm not square. Yeah, so it looks like the home games will I'm actually getting texts from Brandon Cristal. Hello, Brandon Cristal. I can tell you're tuning in. He's letting me know.
Why is he not texting me?
Because he doesn't like you as much.
He actually doesn't.
Broncos at Washington and Philly, and then they host the Giants and the Cowboys.
Oh, wow.
Those are going to be some fun games. Wow. Okay. And what if the Giants get Shedeur?
Ooh.
Come on home. Come on home to Colorado so we can.
Yeah. You
kidding.
Kidding.
All love to Shedeur Sanders. All love. But that'll be good. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, playing in Philly, not so fun.
Yeah.
But defense, you know.
Yeah, the Super Bowl champions, but going there and then the huge challenge. And
it's a great way to solidify yourself as a contender if you take down the
big
Super Bowl
Eagles.
champions.
Yeah.
So there we go. BK said, you keep your text up and Nate doesn't. Hard to text his notepad.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Very true, BK. Very, very true. But very exciting away game for the for the Commanders. So I will definitely be going to that game. Because who knows? I might be traveling to and from DC. I don't know what that's going to look like, but for sure I will have to be there, and I'll make sure Deebo's given me the best access to the game.
Washington Dulles, which I'm sure you flown into before.
I've flied there.
Can you name what movie was filmed and based out of Washington Dulles? The entire movie pretty much took place at Dulles Airport.
Is it a new movie?
No.
So then why would you ask me that question when you know?
Just so you could be wrong and I could laugh at you.
Right. That's exactly what that was.
So I can educate you.
Failure.
So I can educate you. Die Hard 2 took place at Dulles International.
Perfect.
John McClane fighting some terrorists, and good movie. Just check it out.
Watch it.
But you got to watch Die Hard 1 first.
You know, I'm really bad at movies, and I'll tell you one simple reason why. I fall asleep.
Watch it during the day.
Dang it, BK, you were late on the text. He just texted me the answer. BK, you got to be quicker than that, BK, all right? Either way, super excited for Deebo. I am so just ready for him to be somewhere. And not to say that I can't speak on the fact that he didn't feel appreciated. If you guys get a second, go read the most recent post that Deebo put out there about his kind of farewell to the 49ers. And it sheds a lot of light on his conversation with Kyle before they ultimately made the mutual decision to just part ways. It was very respectful. It was very amicable. I know for a fact Deebo has nothing but love and respect for the 49ers.
Oh, yeah.
This is just a business decision for both parties, and there is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. It's
what were you gonna say that you didn't?
Well, I was gonna say something.
You had a little smirk.
It was gonna be like a relationship thing. Like, it's not you, it's me. You know, I need some space. Like,
well, you know, there are such thing as like healthy
that's what I'm saying.
breakups.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's like you don't
grow
hate the
apart.
person, you just grow apart. That's what it is. You know,
Yeah,
different priorities. So yeah,
so they're moving on. They're both moving on, and it's going to be great for both of them. Let's move on to the third quarter.
Yeah.
There it is. Third quarter.
Yeah.
The one thing I felt like frustrated me the most.
Yeah.
And we saw it on full display in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Running backs matter. Saquon Barkley would like to have a chat with people that think running backs don't matter. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, matter of fact, Saquon really wasn't even that guy in the Super Bowl, but he certainly helped them get there. So it's not like running backs are everything, but they do matter. And the Broncos have a super weak run game. It's very weak, almost non-existent at times.
The running game was weak.
Bad. Sorry,
and it's important. I think, I think it's accurate to say that, and I think anybody in that building would agree to that. The production was weak, but I got to be careful and not say the running backs are weak.
No, the game, the game
devotion
plan,
to it, and it's
the strategy.
And it's appropriate that we're having this in the third quarter because the Broncos would never really run the ball in the third quarter. They'd come out at halftime, and
even if it was working in the first and second quarter,
even if it was working, run it. Sean Payton wrote "run it" on his notebook. If you have to do that, it's a problem, right?
That's a problem.
Do you think Nick Sirianni or the Ravens are having to run it on their play sheet? No, they know what they are and who they are. And I think that whereas the league was a passing league for so many years, it's starting to the pendulum coming back to where these teams that have strong running games and strong running backs are better set up for the playoffs and for late season runs than teams who don't. The Bills are a great example of that. They really committed themselves to the running game and really whooped up on the Broncos on both sides of the ball, stopping the Broncos run, and then running the ball down the Broncos' throat. So to me, we are going to talk about upgrading the running back room, but it's also about putting more of a priority on the running game on a daily basis, like every single day of practice. To me, the ass whooping they got at the hands of the Bills in the playoffs was indicative of a team that didn't practice hard enough in advance of that game to prepare for what they were going to face. Now, a lot of it was they weren't experienced in the playoffs. The Bills have a lot of playoff experience. A lot of the guys on that roster have been there, have been close,
many times.
have not got. So they were ready for that matchup. The Broncos, these guys are doing it for the first time. So many guys were playing in their first ever playoff game. Even guys who, like Cortland Sutton and Garrett Bowles, who've been here for 6 years, are playing in their first playoff game.
So crazy to think about.
Right. And so
crazy.
All these guys were going in there. They didn't really know what to expect, and they got hammered. And so they learned a lot. And they're going to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to improve in that regard. But it's also a Sean Payton thing. You look at Sean Payton's track record. He's rarely had 1,000-yard rushers. He likes to go for the two-headed monster, thunder and lightning. He likes like the bang, the bowling ball guy, and then like a Alvin Kamara or Darren Sproles guy as well. I personally believe they have that guy already on the roster. That's Jaleel McLaughlin. I think they really like him. Some people might disagree. I know you do as well. And time will tell. I may be wrong here. They may have a whole new running back room. But I think they really love Jaleel. His work ethic. He did average the most yards per carry than Javonte or Audric Estime did last year. So Javonte led the team in rushing, but only 513 yards. Your leading rusher had barely over 500 yards, which is like not even 50 yards. It's like 50 yards a game.
Bo Nix
it's like less than 50 yards.
Like the leading rusher in most games this season.
Yep. Bo had 430 yards. Jaleel had 496. Bo had 4 touchdowns, 4.7 yards a carry. Jaleel had 496, 1 touchdown, 4.4 yards a carry. And Javonte Williams only had 3.7 yards per carry. And that's kind of like throughout his career, he's only been in the threes. And I think probably Javonte, his time as a Bronco is likely over. As much as we like him,
Makes
as
me
much
sad a
as
little,
as much as he's been through, that's how it goes. It's a production-based business, and I don't think he's produced enough to keep him around, at least not in that role. The question to me is, will Audric Estime still be in their plans? Because he had 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4.1. He had some nice moments, but in moments where I thought they would turn to him more, they decided not to.
I was going to say, I think some of Audric's struggles this season were out of his control. I don't think they committed to him enough.
Yeah.
You know, it was very confusing, even as a fan, to watch Sean Payton verbally commit to Audric Estime being their guy and then not seeing that actually translate in a football game. So to be honest, I think how I feel about Audric Estime is just a big giant question mark, because I don't know how they feel about Audric Estime. I don't think they committed to him enough to truly give him a good shot at proving himself.
I agree with that. And I think that it was very revealing. They decided not to dress him for the Bills game, for the playoff game. They put up Blake Watson or Tyler Beatty instead, because Sean Payton said they wanted more juice. And obviously that didn't work. They could have used a guy who had more, consistency. Pop was a little harder to bring down. They decided not to play him. I think that means maybe, to me, the writing may be on the wall that they're going to go with 2 guys. They might draft 2 running backs who they see as, this is a deep running back class, I've been told. And so they could draft 2 guys and hopefully.
Could they clean slate?
I don't think you would totally see a totally
I don't
new
think that'd
room.
be a good idea.
No, and the reason why I think Jaleel is a good keeper here is because his work ethic, his value on the team. He was undrafted. He came in the back door. He's the first there in the building every day. Last to leave. He works his butt off.
Works hard.
He lives for this stuff, and it's hard to find those guys who
Well,
want it as bad as he does.
You can't teach passion.
Right, and he has it, and so I think the ripple effect of having a guy like that leave your locker room is a little bit dangerous, especially when you're on the cusp of building something special.
I was going to say, you're playing with fire if you do that, I think.
And you think about like these glue guys that don't necessarily always show up on the stat sheet, but are very important to a locker room.
Yeah.
Sean Payton understands that.
Yeah.
And so who are those guys? And I think Jaleel is one of those guys. So I'm not, prepared today to say which running backs they're going to draft. I think that depends on who's available for them. And it's like, you never know. Like Ashton Genty, sure, that'd be great to have him here.
Oh my gosh, I'd love it.
And
he'd get to keep all his orange and blue stuff.
Yeah.
And Broncos stuff.
Exactly.
I've thought this through.
So a dynamic, every down running back type of guy is, I think, who they're going to target first, unless there's a tight end that they really love in that first round. I think they're going to go running back first round. And I think it'll be a good move. But
you know what? Don't waste my time, Sean Payton, getting all excited about a new running back if you're not going to practice and commit to the run game, because that is also part of the problem here. It's like, I do feel like we had talent in our running backs that could have been utilized better. I'm not saying they are the end all be all. I'm not saying that we keep them around, but some of this falls on Sean Payton and his lack of commitment to the run game, and the fact that he would rather be a pass happy coach, which is fine. But
you got a rookie quarterback too.
You got a rookie quarterback, and you could have set him up for better success having a more reliable run game. And you didn't even give your team the chance to prove that they are reliable in the run game because you couldn't commit to it. So some of this, Sean, I'm talking to you.
Relative to your play calling,
to your commitment issues and your play calling,
and your chip lips.
We got to commit to the run game a little bit more, because that's the only way you're going to be able to utilize a draft pick that has a ton of potential, that's young. If you're going to invest in him and utilize him.
And you got one of the best offensive lines in the league. These guys are really, really good. I don't want to miss giving them their props. I mean, you got guys who, and it's easier to run block as an offensive lineman than it is to pass block. When you run block, you attack. I get to attack and throw the first punch. I get to fire out of my stance and smack you. Whereas if I'm pass protecting, I have to pass set and just, you get to run right into me, and I'm just kind of anchoring myself and trying to stop you as you bull rush me. That's not an envious position to be in as an athlete. Your leverage is given up to these athletes who are coming downhill to try to attack your quarterback. It's helpful for an offensive line to commit to the run so they can fire out and be the aggressors. So hopefully Sean Payton can help out his offensive line. The Broncos were 10th in points offensively and 19th in yards. So they were bottom half of the league in yards on offense, and that's got to get better if the Broncos want to make some waves.
Agreed. Fourth quarter. Final.
And we don't
we
need to spend a
have-
ton of time on this one.
Yeah,
because
the quarterback conversation. Who's the backup here? Who is the quarterback?
yeah, so
backup?
this is something that's very important. I think it's more important than people understand because of the frequency of injuries to quarterbacks in the NFL. Bo was able to start every game last year, but he did break his back. He had 3 fractures in the transverse process in his freaking spinal column. Still, he played anyway. He didn't come out of that game.
Spinal column.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
and he ended up playing the next week against the Browns and was able to make it through. But
we're not going to do that again.
He's
Sean.
played a ton of football.
Or Bo.
He's playing a ton of football in college. He played all 17 games last year. He was banged up. He had a little procedure already, like in his ankle or his knee or something in the offseason as well. So Bo has already had his share of injuries, which all football players do. But in the event that he gets hurt, who's going to be your backup? The Broncos had 2 very capable backups last year. Jarrett Stidham, who's had starts in this league. Zach Wilson, who's had a ton of starts. The word on the street is that both of those guys might be gone. And so you're looking for an all-new backup. And so who's that going to be? Is that going to be Jameis Winston?
Aaron Rodgers.
Backing up. I like it. I like where your head's at.
He needs to be backed all the way up.
He's not going to.
Back up.
You think so?
Back up.
You're over Aaron?
So. You don't
Over
understand.
it.
So over it.
Well, I don't think he's over it yet. I think he still wants to play.
He won't be over it for another 40 years, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But like.
We're 22.
Right. We need to just make the executive decision that, this league is getting younger, stronger, faster.
Yeah.
And he's doing the opposite.
Yeah, that's true. He's like the last dinosaur,
And he is hanging on for dear life.
Well, but I understand why to an extent.
I get it.
Because look, but also he's like, he of that group of like transcendent quarterbacks in the 2000s and the 2010s, like, the Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Phillip Rivers, all those guys. He's the last one.
He probably feels like he has unfinished business still.
Unfinished business. He's the last one. And those guys saw the game differently than these young crop of quarterbacks.
Of course.
They process things differently. They studied differently. They were coached differently. These young quarterbacks play with their legs. They play different. They come from different college programs. So I think when Aaron Rodgers is gone, he's the last of the dying breed. And when Aaron Rodgers is gone, the game is what he represents is gone. And so it's going to be all these young whippersnapper quarterbacks who run all over the place and do all this stuff and never really get to see the game the way the Bradys, Mannings, and Rodgers could. So he's in possession of some very special knowledge and skills. And so they're going to have to drag his ass off the field. Yeah, no, I know.
It's not translating.
But maybe it will somewhere else. Who knows?
When you're a knower of knowledge that you believe sets you apart from the rest, I think your record should reflect that a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what my frustration is for Aaron Rodgers and why I think he might need to be a backup quarterback is I don't think there's anything wrong with a little slice of humble pie.
Don't you think the last 2 years gave him that?
I still don't think because he found a different person to blame for the injury, not his fault, right? Like you can't control that. It is what it is. I'll be back before they tell me I'm going to be back because my body will handle this. Like he's always got some way to be better than everyone, yet he's not winning Super Bowls and he's not getting a parade in Disney. It's like, dude, at some point you got to just understand, like, yes, you are great and you probably do see the game very differently than most, but if it's not working, then it doesn't really matter.
I'll say this about the right time to walk away. Like a guy like Aaron Rodgers, and if you watched Enigma,
I didn't.
Then you would know.
But you did.
I did.
Yeah.
He has been doubted his whole life. He has been overlooked his whole life.
Do you believe that?
Well, no. I mean, every athlete kind of has that sort of like inner monologue that they tell each other. They'll tell themselves, nobody believes in you. But yeah, I mean, I was doubted. I was cut. I was told I wasn't good enough. And Aaron Rodgers had to go to a junior college because he wasn't recruited at all. Goes to Cal and then gets, drafted later than he thought he was going to be and sits behind Brett Favre. And so he's been able to take spite and turn it into his fuel, right? And so that same self-confidence that goes against all the people who tell you can't do it and you end up achieving it, that same self-confidence becomes a hindrance on the back end because you don't know when to walk away because people have been doubting you your whole life and you proved them wrong before. How is this any different? This is the same thing I've been through before. I'm going to prove them wrong again. And so you actually end up getting dragged off the field and it ends in a really ugly way because you can't see it because the same thing that made you great in the first place is making you look bad in the end.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I get that. I don't know what the perfect backup is for a Bo Nix, but
I think he's on the roster already. I think it's either Jarrett Stidham or Zach Wilson. That's
think
what I
it's
would do.
Zach.
Yeah, the
If
problem
I
with,
had to pick, it'd be Zach.
I would same with me. I think he presents more upside.
Mhm.
The thing about Zach is he wants to play elsewhere. Probably he wants to try his chance to start
I
again.
think he wants to play.
Yeah, because he's started over 30 games in the NFL. He's learned
Yeah.
a lot. Now he's like, all right, I'm ready to go again.
Right.
So he's going to look for an opportunity to do that. Jarrett, I don't know why Jarrett, wouldn't come back here. I think it's a perfect opportunity, but he probably sees himself as a starter too. And if you're coming here, you're not the guy. Bo is the guy. There's no room for like.
Do you think Jarrett is a starter?
I don't.
No, I
I don't. But he believes he is, and good.
Which you kind of have, right? Like
Yeah.
in order to even have that opportunity, you have
Yeah.
to believe you are.
Yeah.
So I get it, but
But I don't believe he is, and so it might end up being a guy like Jameis Winston or someone else out there. But I think that'll be a downgrade from what they had last year. That
Mhm.
room was pretty competitive and pretty together, and I think it helped Bo Nix a lot. You never know what it's going to be like when you mix up the chemistry and stuff like that.
I just heard from BK,
Yeah.
and he said Gardner Minshew as a backup.
Yeah, no,
Question mark.
don't like that. Yeah, the village people come to town. I'm not into that. Well, yeah, it's like every day is like he lives in his van. He's got a weird mustache. He wears cutoff shorts with his junk hanging out of it. I'm not into that.
What? His junk hangs out of his
Well,
shorts?
he wears like Daisy Dukes, cut off jeans and like he's like a caricature. He's a character for sure.
Maybe Sean wouldn't vibe with that.
I don't think he would. I personally don't think he would. Sean's got to be the guy. Sean's got to be the guy with the flair, the fun,
Sean
the
strikes
personality.
me as, because like I'm very careful about using this word these days, going back to like trying to be careful about what you say in the year 2025. Sean to me strikes me as someone that just wants normal people around him. And if someone were to say to him, like, what does normal mean? He'd be like, you know what normal is. Like, don't question me. We are all on the same page here. That's not normal.
Yeah.
Like Russell Wilson's weirdo things he's saying, that's not normal.
Right.
We all have a pretty basic understanding of like the normal that Sean Payton probably prefers.
Yep.
And Gardner Minshew wearing Daisy Dukes with his junk hanging out, probably not normal.
Probably not.
Sean probably finds that to be very off-putting.
Yeah. Living in his motorhome that he parks at training camp. Like,
does he really do? I guess I have not.
He like lived in a van for a while he was like playing in the NFL or something crazy like that.
So he likes the simple life.
He does.
He's an outdoorsy creature. Okay. Good for you, Gardner Minshew.
Gardner
Minshew. So you think, is there a world where they keep Zach Wilson?
Yeah,
sounds
I think there's that world. Yeah, like because you also got to think that you are a play away, and he watched what Bo went through, right?
Well,
and he also knows that Sean Payton is a really good coach,
mm-hmm.
and that he could have a great opportunity.
There's a lot to learn here.
There's a lot to learn here, and again, you're always a play away from getting hurt and becoming a starter. And if that were the case, he'd be in a pretty good position.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful where you decide to go and the situation you end up in. And this place has been good for Zach. I don't know what the interest is in him elsewhere, what his agent has been, who his agent has been talking with, but I think he has a lot of talent.
Mm-hmm.
And if something were to happen to Bo, he could step in and really light things up.
Light him up.
Like
a.
But you got to think like
chimney.
Long term.
Took me way too long.
Light it up like a chimney.
I mean, yeah, that. It took me way too long to come up with that very lame.
No. Yeah, it was actually kind of lame.
It was.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, on that note, 2-minute warning.
2 minutes on the clock.
Woo, 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 woo. I'm annoying. Get used to it. 2-minute warning.
Yeah.
We're going to be deep diving. I mean, as deep as you can go in 2 minutes.
Yeah. Into
why. I'm trying to remember what you told me.
You want me to say it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was trying out talking so
Into
slow.
Why?
I'm like, I'll figure it out if I can.
Thing to do is if
my gosh. Okay. Wait, it's about the backups.
No, it's about Shedeur.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Why he shouldn't be drafted early.
Why it will be good for his career if he's not drafted in the top 10. That's what I am about to convince you of. And go.
3, 2, 1, bang.
All right. So, every quarterback coming out of college wants to be a top 5 pick. And really in the NFL, it's been so quarterback heavy in the drafts lately that I think a lot of these quarterbacks are overdrafted. You know,
Mhm.
teams will trade the farm to get more, to get a pick, to get up and draft number 2 overall so they can get this person, or Trey Lance at number 3 or whatever it was. And oftentimes these guys are overdrafted to the point that they end up on a really bad team with not great resources, bad ownership. There's a reason why they're drafting number 1. There's a reason why you're drafted in the top 5.
Right.
Unless you trade a bunch of stuff to get up there, you're probably a bad team. And I think bad teams have gobbled up so many quarterbacks with a ton of potential who could have been great pros. And I don't want to see that to happen to Shedeur. And so as much as it would be great to be a number 1 pick overall or the top 5 pick or whatever, because your money would be bigger and the, the prestige would be greater, I think it would be better for Shedeur if he gets drafted to a team in the 20s, because that means they're a playoff team that were good but not great, that have a pretty good culture in place, that are used to winning, that have people in that locker room who are going to pick him up and not rely on him to be a leader in year 1 and lead them to the promised land. Shedeur already has a lot of swagger. He's got a lot of expectations that come with him. But if it's all put on Shedeur, I think it's going to fail.
Yeah.
I think that a team like, and I heard this in a mock draft, a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 21 could draft Shedeur Sanders.
It'd be great.
And I think that for him would be great.
That'd be great for him.
Great defense.
Great coach.
Incredible culture. He said he changes the culture everywhere he goes. How about not having to change the culture? How about just being one of the guys and being a teammate, right? Wouldn't that be a lot easier on you than having to feel like you have to change culture? Go be on a team that knows how to win, that has a game. Shedeur to the Steelers.
Keep talking. That was really great.
Thank you.
And I absolutely agree with you. I do think we, more often than not, I mean, look at the 2 more successful rookie quarterbacks this year.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Decent teams, right?
Decent teams.
Yeah, Caleb Williams
made it to the playoffs.
had a hard time. Yeah. Drake May had a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
J.J. McCarthy got hurt.
That was
Jaden Daniels, he was a top 5 pick, but they had that pick because they traded or whatever. They weren't a horrible team.
Right.
The Commanders weren't like dog poo-poo,
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I would love to see him somewhere where he can actually just play ball. Not feel the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Play ball, babe. Just be one of the guys.
I like that.
I think that would be good for him. And he's going to be out from under his dad's shadow. And of course, he's always going to be a Sanders.
Make your own mark.
Yeah, but it'll be nice to be away from daddy and just be able to start by your. This will be the first time he's been away from his father. Ever.
It will.
Ever.
And some of that's going to be
It's going to be challenging.
It's going to be shocking for him. It's going to shock his system a little bit.
When your head coach is
I'm
your
not saying
dad
that
and you're the
Coach Prime
quarterback,
babied him, but
he definitely
safety net
set him up to succeed.
Yes.
And some maybe, who knows? So I think that would be good for Shedeur. It wouldn't be the end of the world if he wasn't drafted where he thinks he's going to get drafted. That's all.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. This has been another Guerrilla Sports Off Field with Liv Moods and Nate Jackson, and it is presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Their salary-based mortgage consultants want to help you save some money by getting you a better interest rate, lowering your monthly payments. So shout out to our friends over at Trusted American. We appreciate you for helping everybody save some money around here. So head to trustedamerican.com and see how they can help you save some money. And we will be back with more Off Field next week, Monday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Mountain Time. So subscribe to the Guerrilla Sports YouTube so you don't miss a thing. Follow us on all things socials. Turn on the post notifications so you don't ever miss a live show. And we will see you guys next week. Bye.